Hey everybody, this is Danny Rabin from Marvin, and I want to talk to you about the Gypsy rest stroke. So it's a right-hand technique that Django Reinhardt uses, but he didn't invent. It's good for any style of music where you're playing string instruments, and it's designed to produce more volume. Now there's two basic techniques, one for playing chords and one for playing lines. And the one I want to focus on is the one for playing lines. So it looks something like this. If you look at the curvature of my wrist right here, right? So the difference between that and playing normal electric guitar style is the flattening of the wrist. So when I'm playing in Marvin, most of the time I actually play with a flat wrist, but sometimes I'll go and curve it. Now people like Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan play with the wrist up too. So you see this angle a lot. It helps you create more volume. A lot of the sound that people attribute to Stevie Ray Vaughan using heavy gauge strings has to do with the amount of volume he's getting from the instrument. But in gypsy jazz, the cool thing is that it allows you to play lines very accurately and very fast and produce a lot of volume at the same time. Now let's talk about the angle a little bit. The first thing you want to do is make sure that the wrist is loose. So if you just take your hand and totally loosen it on the guitar and then pick it up, notice that to hold this part straight you need to activate this muscle. When you let it go, you get this kind of lady hand thing happening, right? See that? So now, after you take that angle and put it back to the guitar, you have this range of motion. Now the thing about it, the motion is identical to putting out a match. So think about putting out a match. That's what picking is. But you gotta get it accurate. So what you want to do past then is maybe think about the angle that the pick hits the string. So the pick has no angle sideways, meaning this way. It's not like Paul Gilbert or George Benson. It's totally straight, but there's a forward slant, meaning you take your hand and you let the pick go 45 degrees forward. So when you hit the string, you go through it. Now, you don't touch it and then let it bounce. You cut through it in one motion. That's the motion. Now, there's three basic strokes in gypsy playing. There's what we call the rest stroke. This thing. On any string. And on the top string, you just go into the guitar. That's why I have this little beauty mark right here. And then on the upstroke, it's the opposite motion. Now let's talk about the motion a little more. The motion has to do with a rotation of this bone with a loose wrist. It's not side to side. It's rotating this and letting the hand fall. Now, the downstroke, the reason you have this 45-degree forward slant is that the downstroke, the range of motion is limited by the next string. You pick into it. But the upstroke gets you above and away from the guitar. And when you're up and away, you can change strings. So even if I'm playing here, it's an exaggerated motion, and that way I can switch strings from the air. The third stroke is what we call the half rest stroke. It's when I do a thing that looks like a rest stroke, but instead of resting, I actually pivot my entire arm up to end up in the position that an upstroke would get me. So an upstroke gets me in the air, and this kind of downstroke also gets me in the air. You see? You use that because there's one simple rule in gypsy jazz. Whenever you switch strings, you switch with a downstroke. So that means if I'm playing one note per string ascending, meaning from the low note, from the thick string to the thin strings, it's like sweeping, right? But if I'm going the other way, it's all downstrokes. And I need to have that bounce, the half rest stroke, to get up. If it's two notes per string, it's just alternating both ways. So even four notes per string, same thing. Just down, up, underneath string. But economy picking is three notes per string downwards is economy picking, meaning down, up, down, little sweeps. So down, up, down. So rest, up, rest, up, rest. Now, the tricky thing is going the other way 3 notes per string. So that's rest stroke, up stroke, half rest stroke. it's a gypsy thing. Now, the other thing I will say about sweeping is that when you change the angle for sweeping, you don't open up the wrist to sweep. Meaning, I'm not going, let's say I'm playing an A minor arpeggio, right? I'm not doing this. I'm not keeping my arm in one place and opening up the wrist. I'm actually moving the entire arm bone down. And picking is just something that happens on one string, and then when I change string, I actually change the location of the entire forearm. So think about the forearm like a mechanical arm that gets you from point A's to point B's, and this rotation with a loose wrist, the actual picking. So if I break down like an enclosure lick like that, what I'm doing is I'm playing on one string and then moving the entire forearm forward, and then using that motion, and again and again and again. So that's it. Breaststroke technique in a nutshell.